We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Pat Kinney,
Here.
Blake Ellefson,
Here.
Richard Pufall is excused, Brad Ray,
Here.
Ron Stindor.
Here.
Thank you. Next, approval of the agenda. We have a motion for approval of the agenda.
Ron will make a motion. Ron,
We'll have a motion by Brad. Is there a second?
Ron second.
Second by Ron. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to 3, public comments. Is there anyone in the room for public comments? Anyone online or on the phone for public comments? Anyone in the room online or phone for public comments? Anyone in the room online or on the phone for public comments? Hearing none, we'll move to number 4. And number 4, the first item is approval of Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting minutes from August 21st.
Brad will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Ron will second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to 4B, sources to replenish unassigned balance. And when I talked to the administrator about this since the last meeting, what I'm really looking for is for an understanding of what funds come into the county that if we had the ability to, we could put into unassigned. And not that we can, say sales tax park money there because we need to use it. But what are the ways of replenishing that? And to me, at least, that's important because it helps us to understand that if we use unassigned fund balance for something, we should also understand the challenges of replenishing that. So if you want to shed some light on that more than we have.
Sure. Really, there are only 2 sources of funds for the unassigned balance. That would be any budget surplus from the previous year, which would include any money we had left in contingency, or one-time dollars. So, like when we got the LACTF money from the federal government, that was a one-time money that would go into unassigned balance. Like when we get the carbon credit money, which we are going to get, Bayfield County got theirs and Iron County got theirs. Ours are going to market any time now. So we should expect to see something end of the year, early next year. That's money that would go to unassigned balance. But those are really the only 2 sources. All of our other revenue sources being taxes, sales tax, shared revenue, all that goes into the general operating budget to do what we have to do. So it's not, we could theoretically put sales tax into unassigned, but then how do we make up that $2 million hole in the budget? Where do we find the revenue, or what expenses do we cut? So it really, if we're not willing to make those any change to that, which honestly would be very hard to do since we're mandated by statutes to do so many of our functions. It really comes down to one-time monies and budget surpluses.
And on the budget surplus, any surplus that was put on the debt levy, we can't put in the unassigned.
Correct. Money put on the debt levy can only be used for debt levy eligible expenses. So like last year, we had about 60,000 extra in debt levy money because our insurance came in lower. So we used that money plus fund balance, unassigned balance, to put a down payment on the HVAC for the sheriff's department. So that 60 grand was eligible to be used for that because it's a capital expense. So if we do have a little extra debt levy money the following year, we can use it for any capital expense or eligible expense. So that could be like putting a new roof on the HHS building, or, I don't know, fixing something in the courthouse, or, any of those number of things.
So as we at some point finish a policy on fund balance, understanding what % we want in there, it's helpful to understand what it takes to replenish it if we use money from it. And then the other part of this, I asked you few weeks back was with the community programs that we support. That is all coming out of
General levy.
general levy, so we can't put any of that on debt levy. So as we support community programs, we're drawing from the same money that we would use for other things that come up that we feel are compelling. Like, we're doing the sheriff's HVAC because we need to, but it also draws down some money that we could otherwise use for other things in the future. But at some point, we use it because we need to.
Right. And some of those community programs like the aging unit, we're required by both state and federal statutes to do some of those functions. We just subcontract it out to the aging unit because it's cheaper to do it that way. If they didn't exist, we would have to run the Meals on Wheels program. We'd have to do the transportation component through HHS, which would cost a lot more money. So, some of those community programs we're actually required to do.
Dan, and I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes, but I think the question around could HHS do Meals on Wheels more effectively, cheaper, with a better outcome? Obviously, we're not at that point, and we continue to support Laura in her work around this, but I think it would be helpful to understand that, piece from Health and Human Services. What would it cost if worst case scenario, we had to do it? Do we know that?
Well, Carrie's on the line and Amber's sitting in the room. We have been talking about what it would take to bring back that component.
We should probably not delve into specifics given the
No.
agenda item as far
Yeah,
as.
not today.
Right.
Yeah,
I think
but
just
another
along-
day, we could, more specifics, just to.
Yeah, we could. Yeah. Yeah. I'll just say we've looked into that possibility.
We could put that on the next agenda.
Yeah, and again, these are just discussions that we should be having at the finance,
Yeah.
And in all defense, Supervisor Nager should be able to be here for that meeting.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. And
Right.
I'm not even throwing her under the bus. I'm just saying for
Yeah.
our county's sakes, we don't know what it would, maybe we do. And I think Terry, telling us that later at another time.
But those sort of topics are important in part because the more efficient we can be with any of the things that we support, the more we are able to preserve fund balance, all things considered,
Well, yeah, that or provide better
or
services.
better services, yeah.
That's usually a trade-off, saving money and better services.
So sometime in January, do you want to finish the fund balance policy?
Sure.
We'll be through the budget season, so questions like this as we think about then in January, if we finish that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then going to the next item, department budgets, we have highway.
Okay, and Mercy is here to talk about the highway budget since she's the one who mostly put it together.
Do you want to come up to a microphone? Do you want to give us an overview then? Or I'm assuming we've all read through it and we've seen some of this at least once before, or do we want to just take questions or comments? Or do you want her to go through it?
It's, yeah, whatever you guys want to do.
I don't think it needs to go through based off of what's in the packet, but I'm fine
Okay.
either way.
Okay. So the one question I had is, at our last meeting, the administrator wanted to put a hard cap on the funding for the capital equipment, the plow truck, et cetera. During the year, as revenue come in from the state, if there's not enough money there right now for everything, but during the year as money comes in through this budget process, would they then have authority, permission to buy those pieces of equipment if they can't buy them all for what's in the budget?
I believe that's what this committee decided last meeting.
We put a hard cap on it, but let's say that's not enough for the equipment as it stands. But
Yeah.
over the coming year, between now and a year from now, if money comes in from the state, which it will, and once they reach a sufficient amount to buy anything they couldn't buy initially, do they have permission to use what's above the cap in this budget?
Yeah, I believe the finance committee agreed to that last meeting, with the caveat that Matt would have to know that his equipment budget would be short the following year because he's using some of that money up already. So he'd have to change his 27 request. And honestly, and we don't know what the prices are going to be. That's why we're trying to be more conservative with the money.
So he has permission to buy that equipment, and if the funding that's in the budget isn't sufficient, then as money comes in, he can buy the equipment.
Correct.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page as far as understanding that, and that he has permission to make those purchases if there's not enough money now.
Correct.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, that would just affect his 27 request.
And I think we just, because I'm running our budget now at the bank, it's hard. There's so many variables throughout the year that change. And with this volatility, hard cap, I think is the wrong word to be using for Matt. I think it's more of a, hey, with all the variables that we know today, here's what our budget looks like. But if it starts getting out of control on the cost side, we have to be able to support him with variables that he has no control over. I think that's one thing Pat's saying is like maybe not hard capping him, giving him some ability to spend more if, like, again, it's not Matt's fault if costs spike. So I think we're okay with the budget as it is, but there could be some changes throughout the year with things he's outside of our control.
Yeah, and let's say, for example, like a thing he thought was gonna, without looking at the budget, just making up numbers, something was gonna cost $100,000, and all of a sudden it's because of whatever reason, inflation, tariffs, you name it, it costs $200,000. Matt also should have the ability to say, no, that's too much money. I can do without this piece of equipment and wait. And I think that would be, that way he preserves his 27 money. And so I think we need to give some flexibility, realizing that 27 is going to be affected by decisions made in 26.
So part of this is we have to publish a notice in the paper for the budget.
Right.
And so by putting a number on this in the budget process, that's part of being able to publish that. But then if money comes in from the state, or it will come in, during the year, he has the ability to acquire that equipment between now and a year from now without waiting for next budget season, provided the monies come in
Correct.
as anticipated and he decides to buy the equipment.
Right. And if, there's huge pricing changes, you can always come to the finance committee just to make sure that everybody's okay with that, knowing the future implications.
Okay.
Does
that make sense? Okay. Any other questions or comments or anything that you would like her to go through? We've seen some highway stuff before, so we've been through most of this. So if we're okay with that, is there a motion to approve the highway budget?
This is Blake. I'll make a motion to approve the highway budget.
Morano, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I just want to make one note before, as with all these budgets, these are preliminary approvals and they are subject to change at either next meeting or the following meeting to make our budget balance and have a tax levy or debt levy that this committee is comfortable with. Just for clarity, so everybody understands.
Yeah, everything's a preliminary until the board approves it as a whole.
Yeah.
So, okay. Next, we'll go to 5B, Health and Human Services.
I just noticed that that summary isn't in here that we had with our board, but I mean, there's a lot of details, so I don't, just real briefly, like you notice there isn't a big increase in our overmatch, like we're asking for about $68,000 more than the previous year. Anticipated it being more, but with giving everyone a step increase, but with retirements and then a couple programs just kind of ending, it's a lower number than I expected. So I didn't really have any major red flags or a lot of changes. And like you said, this is a moving target. If we find out any like firm numbers on revenue, I'm using 2025 numbers right now, that could change before then. Sometimes we get these numbers in before, and then we'll plug them in and make the changes at that time.
Questions?
I just had a
Right.
question of like, we're well into 2025 and it looks like revenue so far based off the actual is pretty low. Is that just the contracts, the way they come in from the ways they get paid that are late
It's-
or?
Yeah, everything's always like two months behind, as far as revenue. Year to date, the last one I did was through June, and we were about, off the top of my head, I think we were about like 43%, 43% reporting on our revenue and our expenses at that time. That is very, normal, because compared to the year before, it was very similar, and then it gets caught up at year end when we do our period 13 closings. So about April is when we get everything in there, and then you'll see like a full picture of revenue and expenses. But it's usually at least 2 months behind
Yeah.
from expenses to getting the revenue.
It just was surprising in the actuals that we have that were run on September 3rd was 68 when the budget's 569,000. So there's $500,000 still coming in. It seemed like a large number might not be coming in based off what was budgeted, but
Oh, I'll have to look. I wonder if there was something missing. You're saying there was only 68,000?
68,000 so far in actual.
Yeah, that can't be right.
Oh wait, I'm on the land one, sorry.
Okay.
Wrong.
Okay, because you were starting to make me really nervous there. Yeah.
No, that's
Like, where's my money? No.
no. Oh. I don't know which one it is here.
Is it on this packet here?
It's the other one. You're right. That's the land one. I apologize. I'm off one.
That's okay. I'm glad that, but you were making me nervous.
Yeah. Never mind then.
Okay.
That'll be for the next one.
Okay.
Any other questions? I got two questions. One on the opioid settlement fund. I know you've looked at, some uses for that. Are there any things that you have in mind that with,
Like plans for using it?
yeah, that,
I think I would let Terry answer that one.
Okay.
Terry, are you on?
Yes, so, we've had so we have an overdose fatality review team that meets every month and does exactly what it's named. We review overdoses in our community. We identify things that may have been causal, things that we could have prevented, different kinds of things that have been identified. One was medication-assisted treatment in the jail. So we originally had reached out to see if we could do some of that. I know the Sheriff's Department was very interested in that. And then we were able to capture that through a grant. So we did not have to use any of our opioid settlement funds for that. The other key thing that has been identified through that review team was an unmet need of recovery housing. So we send people to treatment. They've come from maybe an environment where their family and friends are using and it's not supportive of recovery. We put them into rehabilitation and they do great. And then they don't have anywhere to go except back to the same environment with the same people who are still most likely using. So we identified that as an unmet need. And we actually were looking at requesting money from our fund to do some of that. And then another grant opportunity came up. So we were able to do that. And we have generous funding for that, but it ends September 30th. However, we've been approved for a continuation grant. They're just waiting for the funds to come down. They're very certain that we'll get that. But in the event we don't, that would be a very appropriate use of that. The other thing would be for people who have Medicaid, Medicaid will pay for residential treatment, but it will not cover the room and board. And we do have a small grant that we receive from the state to fund that portion that is not covered by Medicaid. When we run out of that funding, then this is what was approved for the last funding period, was some uncovered balances for room and board. So we'd likely be requesting that again. The other thing that we've identified is because we've met those two really key targets with the medication treatment in the jail and the unmet recovery housing needs, that we could likely do a community survey to find out what the community feels would be best needed and get community input as well. So those would be my suggestions.
Okay, so if I'm correct, there's no timeline on using this money, correct?
No, there's no timeline on using it. Just, people are starting to ask.
So that was one reason I asked, just to make sure we're still looking. But if you find other sources like grants that fill those needs, that's great, because it stretches this money out as long as possible for things that are important.
Mm.
And so it gets, used for the best purposes we can. So that's good.
Well, yeah, and the sheriff's department is eligible to use some of that money too for opioid abatement.
Mm.
So,
And then the other question is, as long as we have you here, the HHS roof, what's the status of that? And I at least apparently wasn't completely clear on what we voted on that day for the roof. I thought we voted to approve repairs. That was my take on the discussion. But do you want to fill us in, Dan, of where we're at and the condition of the roof?
well, I'll let Terry do it, and Amber can tell you about the streams of water she gets in.
So I believe what was approved was getting an estimate for the repair versus replacement, if repair was feasible or not. And I know Dave, the maintenance person for the whole county, we had identified somebody in our area who does metal roofing for an extraordinarily good cost. So we were reaching out to them to see about an estimate, and they have not gotten back to us. So we're kind of starting all over again with trying to get those estimates of whether it's repairable or replaceable. But the initial assessment from Dave was it needs full repair. So I'm assuming it may go that way, but it's really busy with construction and trying to get people to come and do that right now when they're trying to wrap up seasonal jobs. It's hard, but we are still pursuing that.
So for 2 weeks from today in the budget, would we then have requests for capital that might include this at that point, at least enough to be in the ballpark of what it would take if it's done next year?
Yeah, we will.
Is full repair mean replacement though? I think that's what you're saying, right?
No, they'd be two different things. There was some discussion that maybe we could just patch the areas that were in need. David had got up there and looked at it, and he felt they were all kind of curling and that he felt, and he used to do roofing, that it would need a full replacement.
Okay.
Just of the asphalt side, the other side is metal, and that's in good condition. So it would just be the original church section.
So Terry, if they do a tear off for metal, it's really important they remove the asphalt shingles. And then there's a material they should put down on the roof, an underlayment that goes under the steel. Most steel roofs that fail are put over asphalt, and it's the bottom side put over asphalt because of the expansion and contraction that rubs and rusts from the underside. So when you get that bid or estimate for a steel roof, make sure it includes the tear off and the proper underlayment, and not just put it over asphalt. That just won't last. But a lot of guys do it because it's cheap and quick. That's not what we want.
No.
Especially when it's sliding off. When the current stuff
Yeah.
is sliding off, we need to get rid of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it needs to be good quality work, and then by the entrance is safe. So I put those things up there to restrict the ice sliding off so you don't have it, hitting sidewalks and things. Yeah. Anything else with HHS? Do we have a motion for a preliminary approval then?
So moved, Brad.
Blake,
Ron second.
oh, Ron got me.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then we'll go to the land conservation budget. And I assume we have Mary Jo somewhere?
No, Mary Jo's out.
She's, okay.
So, but, Mr. Ray, you had a question?
That's the question is, The actuals have only 68,000 in revenue and yet 569 budgeted. So is it just that it all comes in later?
Yes,
Or
it all comes in much later.
Okay.
She gets the money in one one fell swoop, I guess.
Okay.
So, and she rarely is off very much. So, and her grant funding changes every year. So because the work they do changes every year. So, you'll see huge increases and decreases in revenue and expense from year to year because they're doing different projects and getting different grants. This budget does reflect the new state aids that funds 100% of the first person, 70% of the second, and 50% of the third.
Yeah, I think so.
So this does reflect that increased revenue. And if you want any specifics of day-to-day stuff, Carisha can tell you.
So she works part-time with them, but yeah.
I do the best I can.
So
Any
land
questions?
conservation is the one that's up massively in 2026. It's like 300,000. And then it looks like everything else comes down. Can you just explain quick again? I know she had mentioned something, but land conservation is going from 422 to 714 in 2026. And I was just curious, is it something specific?
Yeah, it's a grant-driven project that they'll be doing next year. So they get the grants, they know what grants they're getting ahead of time and how much money they're getting, so they can budget those expenses out then.
And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe a new grant was added for next year, the USGS grant, the Fish and Wildlife Service, so.
Yep, it's through the
260.
Great Lakes. Cliffwick, or not, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. I get all my acronyms straight there. Yeah, so they did get a grant from that, and so did the Burke Center. So, any other questions on this? Do we have a motion to approve on a preliminary basis? Ron?
Ron will make a motion, we approve it on a preliminary basis.
Do we have a second?
Blake will second that.
A second from Blake.
So
Any
you-
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries, thank you. And then we'll go to the sheriff.
So
Good
we have our
afternoon.
chief deputy here.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So just like the land records, there is going to be some revenue coming in, but it's not going to be what was projected for 2025.
It's gonna be more.
It's going to be far less, I would say. Especially like you'll have the 911 grant that's separate from the sheriff's office now, as you know. The ones that are coming in later will be like the training revenue. They don't get dispersed till I believe November. There is some increases. Some of our grants ran out. One will run out at the end of the year is the body worn camera grant that covered the cost, is a match grant that covered the cost of the cameras themselves, which are basically leased, and the cost of the storage of the data. So that has ran out and we would have to cover that. Those items were placed inside the jail building telephone bill. So there was a 20,000 increase in that. Some of the increases ranged from two positions that weren't funded but were approved last year. That would be in the investigator spot and then the flex deputy position. Another increase, as you can see, is it was hard to budget for the overtime for the correction officers. Dan explained me that it was good, that what they were being paid was correct, so.
Yeah, what he's talking about is overtime pay on a holiday or pay on so you work on Christmas. So you get paid 2.5 times your wage for working on the holiday because 2.5, because you get 1.5 for the holiday and then one for the holiday itself. So you get 2.5 times that day.
And then they work a long week and they work a short week. So it was hard to balance that out. Sue and myself, we did change some more revenue numbers to more realistic numbers this morning. So you'll be able to see that next meeting. Any questions?
Want to say there's also going to be an additional 50,000 added to animal control. That's not in here yet. We're trying to balance the budget first before we add it in. And we're trying to see if that money's debt levy eligible too.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to tell them a little more detail?
Sure. So I guess most of you should know that we moved from the vendors for animal control. Used to be Kelly Hyde, and she sold her kennels and left the area. So we moved to the Humane Society. Um, um, so we're there with Bayfield County, the city of Ashland, all contract with CHA. So they don't have enough room for their own operations, plus all of our stray animals. So they are going to be building on a new structure to accommodate the counties and the city. The agreement would be that each county and the city would contribute $50,000 to the construction. We'd be asking municipalities to kick in $3,000, and CHA would fundraise the rest. And they would hopefully have the new building up by the next winter. It's a long-term solution for us in animal control. Also, I do think it's the one organization where almost everybody could agree that's where strays should go. And they make sure animals who aren't claimed or adopted out, they have their shots and all that stuff. So, it's a long-term investment we're looking at making. But I don't know if that money is eligible for debt levy or not. So I'm waiting to hear back from Ellers on that one.
Hey, I've got a couple questions, Pat.
Go ahead.
How come there's so many different roll-up account levels, like the 510 and the 511, 512, 513, 514, 515? So we got 10 pages of the budget here. If I'm looking at the sheriff budget correctly, is that right?
Yeah, well, let's Sue answer that.
So there was a recommendation by the financial consultants that we separate departments into department codes for the ease of running reports for one thing, and being able to fine tune more of the departments. So we wanted to be able to identify, say, law enforcement versus jail. Human Services has, they have about the most detail using this chart of accounts, but it does really make it very nice for running reports. And it's new last year, I think we had it in place. So I know you don't like all the extra, but it does work great. So.
Well, I think it's great that for you guys running reports, for us in finance, they should be summed up by I don't know. It just seems like it's hard for me to go through this and decide where to focus on because we're at the way bottom. If you go to the very bottom, the last page 10, it says revenue total, 2025 budget. So you're using revenue as negative. And then you have expense total of 6.28, grand total 5.37. Okay, so then next year, you're saying your revenue is gonna go way down. Your expenses are gonna go way up. And now you're gonna have $6.1 million you need. And if I try to go and figure out all these line items, it's a lot to try to figure out and hone in on where in the heck are we going that far away from where we want to go directionally with the budget.
Dan?
Well, I guess, Blake, that comes down to the question of how much detail does the committee want? That's been a question we've been struggling with all year. So, when we put these budgets in, I decided to err on giving you everything as opposed to summarizing it. If you would like at the next meeting, we could certainly summarize these more.
Well, I think it gets back to having somebody internally. I know the guys on the finance side are helpful, and but I think the question becomes is internally at the county level, we have to have someone that's doing what Sue's doing, but digesting it down so that at the committee level, because right now I'm not saying, but there's this lack of a finance director at the county, and
Right.
it's coming up in the finance committee meetings through this type of issue. And I'm not saying good, bad, but it's, as a finance committee member, it's frustrating because how are we gonna make up that huge difference in the budget for next year for sheriff? What recommendations do we have?
Go ahead, Sue.
So we have a range from 50-10 to 50-50 for sheriff department, department codes. These can be separated by those department codes individually, so you can see what the revenue and the expense is for each of those department codes, like you see at the very last page of that report. So, and like Dan said, we can summarize it as well and not have, do a summary of a department code that will show what the revenues are total, what the expenses are, and what the difference is for each of those department codes without showing all the individual line items. So,
Well, I think the individual line items are important, but I think what Blake's getting at is something to help summarize where this big increase is, why there's a big decrease in revenue, so that, because Blake's got a valid question, is where are we going to come up with the extra almost $1 million in the budget with this increase of what's requested?
we can try to manipulate that report so that
Yeah.
we can detail where the large expenditures versus revenues are. So I can't do it right now, but we could have something prepared for next time.
And we could also do that summary and give you the whole thing. So if you can drill down if something doesn't look right to you. I mean, it's just really how much information do you want and how do you want it?
Yeah, so when I started, over 5 years ago, we had what seemed like very little information to go on. And so we did keep asking for more detail, and now we have enough detail that I think we've got as much as we want. But the hard part is, and I would agree that sometimes the summaries are nice, because then you can look at the big picture and then start looking at the detail for the things of interest. As we look at all this detail, sometimes it's hard to put together the bigger picture and see what's going on. So the big picture summaries then can help us look where more detail is. And it is interesting to go through this stuff and, see what's in there. There's a lot of stuff in there that, we wouldn't have anticipated or didn't know about. So it certainly adds up too.
I mean, at the next finance, we will have that summary like we presented
Yeah.
last year that summarizes law enforcement, human services, highway, and then it has a few other departments in there. And then the more general accounts departments are all categorized, sorry, under the general fund. So that one that we don't have prepared for
Yeah,
today.
I think I can find that one. We would have given it to county board for final approval. Just to- Yeah, I can't get to it.
Board Chair?
I have a question on page 5. In the very first part of page 5, it shows the rec officer, which I believe in 2025, we didn't have one. Okay, but the budget was 93,000. We didn't have one. But in 2026, it's 131,000. What would be the difference if we had one? Why is it going up $40,000?
Oh, the $130,000 is the cost of a deputy with all the benefits and everything. But we get about $70,000 in grant money from the state.
Okay,
So that's kind of where your difference is.
okay, thank you.
Anything else with the sheriff's budget? Do we have a motion to approve on a preliminary basis?
Ron will make a motion. We approve on a preliminary basis.
Do we have a second?
Blake will second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then to reports and updates, the first one is the treasurer report.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was trying to find that sheet that Sue was, it's this sheet here that Sue was talking about. I think I can make it bigger. So this is the sheet we'll have for you next time that summarizes everything. Okay. Yeah, and this is what will go to county board too. And then people can refer back to the finance committee for specifics. All right.
Treasurer report.
Okay, so nothing's changed in treasurer for the treasurer. Oh, no, it's right there. Interest rates haven't changed yet. We expect that will happen this month. And I assume at the October meeting, you will hear about our interest rate change. If I assume you'll see they'll go down just a little bit. Blake, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, there's a meeting today that they're gonna come out with what the Fed next week with their planning, so they're talking Fed cut, but inflation came in hotter than expected, so we don't fully know yet. We'll see.
So you might see a 1/4 point drop in our interest rates. Is basic, or you might not see any change, depending on what the Fed does.
Going to the next one, county investments.
Oh, that's what we just looked at. The Treasurer's Department and county investments are the same thing.
Sales tax review.
Okay, so again, this lags 2 months. So this would be for June. And I don't know, it's hard to believe that.
It should be obvious to everyone what's going on. Everything's costs more.
Yeah,
The more you pay, the more sales tax you pay. Because it isn't rocket scientists. You go to the grocery store, go to any place. Every item you see that you bought last month is higher. Like Blake said, inflation's up 2.6 or 2.9 over last year. So good for us, but our costs are going to go up too. So,
right.
Well,
you know.
but I look at it and based off 25, we're 2/3 of the year, so should be 67%, and yet we're only at 63%. And looking at the other ones, I don't know if we're going to hit, because we were so low back in February, which would have been
I don't know. It's been busy in the city all summer.
it has been, but we missed that. We had that huge 24 in February. And and then we were down for a couple months in there. And It just, the math, it has to be higher than what the average of of 2024, the average in there, just rough estimate is gonna be 180,000 a month that we get. And 180,000 doesn't get us up to 772,000.
80 times 4 gets us slightly less, yeah.
Yeah, and because through 4 months or through 2/3 of the year, even though we still will have August and September, which are going to be bigger months for tourists.
July too.
Oh, July, August.
This is only
Yeah,
through,
July.
actually
August.
only through
Yeah.
June.
But it looks, I don't know where we were last year in terms of that, but looking at the last few years, it doesn't look like we get that much. It doesn't go much bigger than the August report. Typically, that is the big one.
So I punched this out, and at the current rate with the percentages showing, we're gonna come up about 112,000 short. But notice the December numbers, they all are lower than the previous numbers. So if we have a dip in December, like we've historically had, that's less than average, we're gonna come up a tad over that 112,000 short for what we were budgeting. So, as we look at that budget that we're gonna approve, we probably should get more conservative on what we're looking at for
And-
estimate.
And we are.
And that's
We
what I'm-
budgeted 100,000 less.
Yeah.
So,
Because it looks like we're gonna come up under budget,
I mean, if you want-
is my concern.
yeah, and I have 100,000 less in the working budget. I see, I look at the other side of it. July, this summer has been insanely busy. I think July is going to come in pretty hot.
So,
I think it's going to come in closer to 200,000, like it did in 23. So, and August has been very busy here too.
That will, yeah, and it seems like it's dropped off come
Well, since Labor Day.
Labor
yeah.
Day, it seems that everything's dropped down, which is typical, but
Yeah.
it's just looking at the past years, that's what I was getting at, is we probably want to think about maybe being a little bit more conservative in our budget estimate. if
Yeah,
we're not gonna
and
bring
and
in
we
that
did that in the
number.
working draft.
so do you want to change for the next meeting? Do you want to drop this estimate by 100,000 then? Because if we're using this as part of our budget, which we are,
Well, I don't think we should because that's what we budgeted already.
Yeah, not for this year, I'm talking
Yeah,
about
but for
the
next year's budget,
next
I already
budgets.
budgeted
Yeah.
100,000 less.
okay.
Yeah, we budgeted 1.9 instead of 2.1. So,
Okay.
The
so
next month is gonna be the real telling sign if we make it this year.
Right, I agree, Blake.
yeah, and we won't know that number until the end of this month.
Yeah.
Anything else on the sales tax? Next item, the administrator updates.
Excuse me. Well, there hasn't been much going on other than budget stuff, but I'll just give you a couple things that are going on. One, you'll probably start seeing it all over Facebook now. Michael's Corporation leased some land from in Marengo, and they are building a big camp there. And well, Michael's Corporation is building the camp. They're building a gigantic camp there for their employees who are going to be building the Line 5 reroute. They've already started construction. And the anticipation is, that they'll start construction next year.
Of the campground or the?
The actual,
pipeline?
the pipeline. It's already passed DNR approval and the Army Corps will approve it soon. The president signed an executive order basically forcing the Army Corps to approve it. So you'll start seeing it over Facebook. You may get complaints. I want to point out, if you do get complaints, the county has no role in the process. We do not issue the zoning permits. We don't issue the construction permits. We don't do anything. It's all run by the state, the DSPS. So if people have concerns or comments, they should contact the DSPS or their state legislators. The state legislature has purposely kept the county out of these kind of things. Just like we have no say in the Line 5 at all. Nor do we get any of the tax revenue from Line 5.
Do you know what the plan is for that campground when Enbridge is done?
Yes, it's going to be turned back to the owner, who will then have a workable camp that he can rent out to people or.
And that's still the plan. That was mentioned months ago, is still the plan. And then does that owner have an interest in maintaining that as a campground on an ongoing basis?
Black microphone.
I suppose, because you're gonna put the sites in water, sewer, and then at the end, the landowner will take it over. It depends who the landowner is. I know the property, but I didn't look to see who technically owns it, but,
It's one of the Jolmas.
okay,
It's, Bruce told me the name, Marcus Jolma.
yeah. So then it's up to the landowner because
The
it'll be
county-
given to them.
The
Okay.
county has no, at the zoning level, we have nothing to do with anything as
Nope,
far
it's
as,
a campground, so the DSPS issues the permits, regulations.
Has the footprint of that been determined?
I'm sorry?
Has the footprint of the campground been determined?
Yes, it has. And that's all public record that people can get from the DSPS.
so like the wastewater stuff, the DSPS, they take care of all the,
All the approvals for the septic tanks, yes.
and then when
And-
that project is done, does the county have any, like, what happens then with the zoning?
Oh, after the project is done, if it stays as a campground, it is still regulated by the DSPS.
Does the county zoning have any input on that?
No. No. No, all campgrounds, and this would be considered a campground, are regulated by the DSPS.
But we get the revenue on the taxes,
We will get the revenue from the increased assessment, yes.
okay.
And that would be considered net new construction too, to increase our levy ability. So if you get complaints, that's kind of our,
Just a question. I remember a year or two ago, there was something that county board voted on about putting a camper. You couldn't just put a camper on your property or something like that.
You had to have some form of septic included, an
That's-
outhouse even,
that-
you had to get a
yeah.
permit, yep.
So you had to do the septic. That's what they're doing. But then how does the septic then become a campground and not a residence?
well, there are plenty of private parks,
Okay.
where they have septic on the system.
Yeah, there's even some federal campgrounds now that have septic and electric and,
Yeah, and a lot of state parks have that too. Okay, so the other thing is, and we haven't been able to make schedules work. Chairman Blanchard is looking to set up a meeting to discuss law enforcement. I believe they haven't told me outright what it is, but I think they want to do a law enforcement agreement, similar to like the one we had approved with Mellon. The sheriff is willing to do so. However, it would have to be 77 hours a week, so that a deputy's schedule is completely paid for by them, and his deputies could do their 4-on 4-offs like normal. So as soon as we have the opportunity, I gave Chairman Blanchard a bunch of dates that I knew we were busy, and that we would be open any other time. So that is something that's coming up, and that may be a change to the budget down the road. Because if you looked at the sheriff's department, there was nothing in there. It was all zeros. So obviously, this committee or the exec committee and then the county board would have to approve anything. But that is something that's coming down the road. And I expect I believe the chairman wants to meet fairly quickly. I know he's been tied up with the whole Line 5 stuff. So as soon as we can get it to work, Chairman Merchant and I will meet with him. So, and that's most of what I got. We just had a meeting not too long ago, so.
Anything else on updates?
Just an update, quick, everybody knows we have a county board meeting coming up on the 16th. And then finance, you guys have a meeting on the 25th.
Yep.
And then executive meets on the 30th. So.
I got a 3 o'clock meeting, so I'm gonna sign off. Thank you for keeping it short and sweet, Pat. I appreciate it.
Yep, our next meeting is September 25th. And we're ready to adjourn then if. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
We're adjourned.